so I'll maybe make it to 10 and go from there. Cool, everybody, Coach Rab here, and welcome to another episode. It's wet and dry in Perth today again, and I'm jumping on to do a live to discuss how to lose weight. Now, before I get stuck into that, please note that my membership is open at the moment. Weight loss is a huge portion of it, whether it's weight loss, weight maintenance, you want to tone up, build muscle, injury rehab. My membership has it all. If you are interested, go to coachrab.com and you can read all about it. So this lesson is how to lose weight. So there's a lot of factors in play, and you'll read different things online. Some talking about keto diet, some talking about carnivore diet, some talking about high carb, low carb, high protein, low protein, high fat, and everything under the sun. And the important thing to know is that nearly all diets work. They just don't necessarily work for you. So that's really important to cover first and foremost, because everybody's lifestyle is different, everyone's metabolism is different, everybody's background and abilities and motivation, it all varies from person to person. So it's important that you find the right program for you. Case in point, the keto diet. Now the keto diet, it's not one that I promote, but it does work. And the reason I don't promote it is it can be quite stressful if it's not suited to your lifestyle, which is completely understandable. But for the people that it is suited to, they get great results. You know, they get very low carbohydrates, put themselves in ketosis, and shred the fat from them. And that there's merit to that. But one of the reasons I don't promote that personally is I struggle trying keto myself. I can do it for short periods of time, but not for longer periods of time. And I find it creates a huge stress on the body. But again, it has its merit. There's other diets where I think you get like Slimming World and Weight Watchers, which do point systems in order to regulate the calorie intake and so on and so forth. There's the alkalizing diet. That's also another way to do it, getting all the good foods in to keep your body in a nice alkali or less acidic state, really. But the key thing is finding the diet that works for you. So first and foremost, if you keep things really simple, energy in versus energy out, right? Let's just go from there. So if you're looking to lose weight, you need to be burning off more energy than you are consuming. Why? Because body fat is stored energy. And unless you're creating a demand on the body's not going to tap into its fat stores. Your body likes to hold on to those fat stores for rainy days, where if you're short on energy or you're out in the back and beyond, there's no food, your body could rely on those fat stores to survive. Now in this day and age, so I've got a heater right between my legs to keep me warm, and I'll just burn my finger on it. And in this day and age, we have food far more readily available in most countries of the world. I do appreciate some people do struggle. But we've got food ready, even with the refrigerators, and we've got supermarkets nearby, so we don't have the same problems of old. So keeping it nice and simple, energy in versus energy out. So if you're wanting to lose weight, you have to address that in some shape or form. So a good thing to do is having a framework, whichever diet you choose, making sure there's a framework and that you stick to it at least 75 to 80% of the time. Now, what does that look like? Well, I usually say to people, if you want to get good results, be good Monday to Friday and relax the weekend. If you want to get great results, be good 6 days of the week out of 7. I do strongly believe in having a day where you just relax. Now, that doesn't mean you go crazy, but on that day, you've just got to not think about it, because when you are involved in a weight loss plan, there's too many variables. It just absorbs all your bandwidth and you can end up getting stressed out, which we'll come to later on. So first and foremost, with energy in, energy out, you need to be able to have a structure to your eating that allows you to monitor how many calories are coming in on each given day. You don't necessarily have to count calories if you know roughly your macros that you're taking in, your protein, fats, carbs, etc. So, but keeping an eye on the food that you're consuming on a regular basis gives you the groundwork for knowing how many calories are coming in. Because there's no point going crazy in the gym, doing lots of extra cardio, but having no clue how many calories you're consuming. Because then you might get results doing that, but then you might not, and you won't know if it's the training's wrong, or you're not eating enough, or you're eating too little, and so on and so forth. So you would need to select a diet that takes this into account. The other thing you need to think about is that when it comes to weight loss, you're trying to tap into fat stores. So you're not necessarily bodybuilding, although there's a more complex process to that. But ultimately, you want to manage your carbohydrates. Why? Because carbohydrates stimulate our insulin response depending on what type of carbohydrate they are, and insulin is a builder hormone. Now, if you're looking to be catabolic, if you're trying to burn fat, you don't want to be consuming sugars on a regular basis, spiking insulin, the builder hormone. Case in point, you could have a 2,000 calorie diet day with lots of training, but all those 2,000 calories are all coming from sugars. Now, that's not going to do you great from a weight loss perspective. So you want to have some sort of management on carbs. There's lots of different approaches to this. One of the ones I sometimes promote is one carb, no more than one starchy source of carbs per day. Like I say, keto diet does little to no carbs, so you get into ketosis. And there's other formats like carb cycling. Sometimes I use that in some of the programs where you start off with some carbs, you go through a period of low carb for a couple of days, and then you carb back up again. It just shocks the system into, burning off the extra fat and get you some solid results. But regardless, you need a strategy for your carbohydrates. Whether you decide to cut them out entirely or whether you cut them down, regardless, those need to be managed. Think of them, you need to keep them on a short lead, put it that way. You need to know exactly how many carbohydrates are coming in, because sometimes adjusting those ever so slightly can be the difference between a good result and a great result. Now, when you are wanting to lose weight, so first of all, we've talked about calories in, calories out, right? So you need to make sure you know what you're eating. You can count calories if you like, or at least structure your plate, so then we'll get into macros in a moment. Then you know you need to keep a handle on carbs, because carbs cannot just be eaten freely if your goal is weight loss, right? So you want to think, right, you're going to have an approach for carbohydrate. The next thing you want to be looking at is your protein intake. Now, for a long time there, bodybuilding style diets were promoted for fat loss, because top bodybuilders, when they're pumping iron and doing all the good stuff and taking high levels of protein, they can shred the body fat off them. Now, in this day and age, latest research, suggests we don't need as much protein unless you are bodybuilding, unless you're doing high level sport, that you're training multiple times per day. But if you're not training multiple times per day, then you don't need as much protein. You only need, on the average person, 80 to 100 grams of protein per day. Now, what does that look like? A protein portion, a decent sized protein portion at each meal would be about 30 grams, give or take. So if you have a good source of protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, guess what? You've ticked that box for the protein intake. The key thing with the protein is that it will help build and maintain lean muscle. And that directly takes us into resistance training, okay? So resistance training is very, very important for weight loss. I did a live just recently saying the benefits of exercise. And on that live, I was talking about how the way that resistance training uses up your ATP stores, it basically puts you into a catabolic state. If you want to get a little bit more in depth with what I spoke about, go and look up on my other video, Benefits to Exercise, and I go a bit more in depth with it. But in a nutshell, the resistance training gets you catabolic and allows you to burn calories long after your workout. The resistance training also tones up the muscle and shapes things up. And as I was explaining in that previous live, what resistance training does, apart from all the other benefits like preventing osteoporosis, regulating hormones and all the good stuff, it also builds lean muscle tissue, and lean muscle tissue is greedy, which is important if you're trying to burn off fat, because the more lean muscle tissue you have, the more calories you need on a daily basis. Therefore, you can get away with having more calories. Now, the reason I bring that up is there are some people that purely try to lose weight via diet. So they might see this, how to lose weight? Oh, I know how to lose weight, right? We just sabotage our calories and eat next to nothing. Now, whilst that works for some people, and I know there are a few celebs out there that, well, they keep quiet about it now, but they used to just not eat. In fact, I remember seeing an article shared from the 80s in Vogue magazine, and this diet was promoting glasses of wine, cigarettes, and next to no nutrients whatsoever. And if you look at the kind of physiques that it produced people that were really skinny, but little to no muscle tone. And the problem that they have is that when you've got next to no muscle tone, the minute you try and enjoy life and have more calories, your calorie requirement is so low that when you eat what a normal person would eat, you're way over budget. And all of a sudden, fat starts to come on. And it's harder to burn it off long term when you've got less muscle in the first place. So it's very, very important in your diet to make sure that resistance training is included to build a lean muscle. And it's also, because muscle is greedy, it means that when you've got the fat off, it's easier to keep the weight off. Because what a lot of people say is like, well, I can lose weight, but I struggle to keep it off. It's like, well, Lean muscle will do the job. So that gets delivered via resistance training. Now remember that when it comes to resistance training, people think, well, I don't have time, 45 minutes to an hour every single day or whatever. A workout can be as short as 10 to 15 minutes if you work hard enough. And I don't mean movie montage. So sometimes I don't have a lot of time, so I'll just do my squats, or I'll just do my bench press, or even push-ups if I don't have kit, right? As long as you make the muscle burn, you'll get that muscle working hard, and it will, you know, burn off any excess fat and keep it nice and toned and healthy. So you have to ensure there is resistance training in your routine if you're planning to lose weight. If you plan to do it on diet alone, you might get results short term. Long term, it's going to be hiding to nothing. Movement. Now, I'm a big advocate for movement. So what is movement? Movement is when I'm throwing my arms around and flapping about and adjust myself in my seat as I do during these lives, because I can never sit still. Movement costs energy, right? Now, in the past, I've had people that go into the gym first thing in the morning, they do their weights, they do their cardio, and they're like, great, I feel fantastic, and their diet's moderately okay, but then they sit down for the rest of the day and do nothing. And they wonder why they lost weight initially and then they got to a sticking point. Now, what happens is the body adapts, and then the calories getting burned every day, calories consumed, it all balances out, and they were getting the benefits from the training, don't get me wrong, but they're saying, oh, I'm still a stone overweight or 20 pounds overweight. It's because they weren't moving in between times. And in their head, they were doing the workout, doing the cardio. And sometimes we're guilty of just wanting something to be taken care of. It's like, right, I was given this program and given the cardio, and I was told that would lose the weight. And whilst that maybe worked for the first 20 pounds, it's not working anymore. You get frustrated and you don't want to have to spend any more energy thinking about it. But the reality is that your overall movement, over and above that, I mean, yes, your workout that morning would have contributed to your movement, but if you only spend an hour to an hour and 20 minutes moving quite intensely in the morning and nothing else for the next 12 hours or so, then your 12 hours of sitting down with little to movement is not going to provide the results you're looking for. So movement is key. That's why we encourage people to go out for walks or count their steps, because remember, what's measured is managed. Step counting, while you could get obsessed with numbers, it's a great way, so long as you can have a healthy relationship with it, it's a great way of keeping an eye on what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. You ever had one of those days where you just look at your steps, you're like, wow, I've done, 18,000 steps today, and you feel good. But equally, there's days when you thought you were busy, you look at your steps, you're like, oh my God, I've only done 4,000 steps. Now, the difference is, when you do your 4,000, you think to yourself, I better get out for another walk. I better bring it up to something respectable. But then when you do the 18,000 or beyond, or whatever is a large number for you, you feel good. You're like, yes, that was a lot of movement. So you have to measure your movement overall. Now, I know I go on about this, but the very picture I used as the thumbnail for this video, that particular routine, I couldn't do cardio at that point because I had a small injury. So all I could do was walk. Weight train, diet, and walk. And I got in the best shape I've ever been in by doing a ridiculous amount of steps. I could not do my usual cross trainer, sweat out. Now, don't get me wrong, if cross trainer gets me there quicker, right? And everybody's in a hurry to lose weight, but it is more stressful. And that's what we're going to come on to in a moment. But I couldn't do that. So what I could do extra walks, and the weight just fell off me. So do not underestimate the power of movement. So far, we know that to lose weight, you have to address the diet. There's lots of different diets out there. I'm not going to preach either one or the other. I've got a particular method that I use in membership that I vary and adjust, but ultimately you might have a particular diet. So I want this advice to be universal. Make sure you've got some sort of structure to your eating, right? Then the next thing, you have to have a structure to your carbs. They have to have a leash on them somehow. Whether that's no carbs, low carb, carb cycling, you can't just be eating carbs willy-nilly. If you have a weight loss goal. If you're just a wellness goal, that might be different. But if you have a weight loss, fat loss goal, you have to have a leash on your carbs. They need to be managed, okay? We need exercise in there because to build lean muscle. We need the protein to feed those lean muscles, and protein also helps us feel nice and full up. Movement is key as well. And again, you might achieve that through doing cardio or just walking or, whatever. There's lots of different walking videos and YouTube videos you can do online to get movement, but you need movement in there. There's something else I'm going to come to, which is so important, and that is your stress levels. Now, people hear stress levels and they think, I don't get stressed. I remember I knew someone once that told me they didn't ever get stressed. I thought, don't be a trooper. Like, everybody gets stressed, and we all experience stress in some shape or form. It's just that as it's human nature to soldier on. You know, it's very much, oh, we'll just get on with it and I'll rest when the holidays come and all this stuff. But stress, whilst we feel that in our heads and we can certainly feel it, intenseness in the body, you forget, or some people forget, that stress is obviously linked to the stress hormone cortisol. Now, cortisol on a chemical level plays havoc on your system, big time. Huge problems with cortisol. So when you are highly stressed, right, it's very likely you will not lose weight, even if you're dieting well, training hard and doing your movement. Because if you're under too much stress, your body goes, it's not happening. Now, the fat that we typically can hold across our middle, known as visceral fat, also is nicknamed hormonal fat. And that's because there's two major hormones that contribute to weight gain across the middle. Now, one of them is insulin. So we know that insulin monitors sugars breaking down from carbs. So, monitoring your carbs will deal with one, great. And the other one's cortisol. So cortisol, if you're under high levels of stress, you can hold weight right across the middle. I had a client once and she was fantastic. Very honestly, they worked hard, because when I trained her in person, she worked hard and she was sticking to diet, and but she was under a lot of stress with work, and she was getting fit everywhere else, but it was just not budging from the middle. And when we finally addressed the stress, that was towards the end of a project she was nearly finishing anyway, but I said, look, you have to address it now, and when you finished your project, and she started to get results when she started doing some stress management techniques, which I can give you in my membership. Then when she finished her project, so she started to, because she'd been at a plateau, she hadn't lost weight for maybe 5 or 6 weeks. She'd lost loads and got to this plateau, and the one place she wanted to lose it, it wasn't budging. We started the stress management techniques, and she then started to lose a consistent pound a week. And the minute she finished this big project that she was working on, she started to drop 2 to 3 again. Now, this is a lady that is not that heavy by this point. So when she was dropping 2 to 3, her stomach went right down and she felt amazing. And to this day, whenever I see her, she absolutely monitors her stress. She understands now, having experienced it. And she said, well, I just thought I'd just get on with it. I thought it was all in my head, in the sense that everybody experiences stress and you just get on with it and don't complain. And that's fine, but if you've got a weight loss goal, you have to be doing some form of stress management. There are techniques I can show you. A really good one, very simple, is silent therapy. Earplugs in, lie on the floor, close your eyes completely still for a minimum of 20 minutes a day. And the scientists with the research said that has been proven to reduce cortisol levels. There was another study into art. It was done on painting, but I reckon when I was reading through the study and I was looking at the areas of the brain that was firing up, I reckon you would still experience that same stress relief from anything creative, whether it was photography, drawing, colouring in, any of these things. I still think you would trigger the same parts of the brain and get that same release and lowering, because you've got to lower your cortisol levels in order to see results to flow. So we need a diet of some sort. Again, there's lots of great diets out there. You have to find the one that works for you. And that's important because, and I'm just going to pick on, well, I'm going to tell the truth. It was Atkins first. Atkins came out 20, maybe 30 years ago. And we know that keto is a more improved version of Atkins. But when Atkins first came out, people tried that, got great results for the first couple of weeks, couldn't sustain the diet, fell off the wagon and blamed themselves. Right. Now, I know this has happened with keto as well, but regardless, this is the original story that I've always tell, because it was based on the Atkins diet. And when I would speak to these people, they said, oh, the Atkins diet is great. Oh, I lost like 5 pounds the first week, 4 pounds the next, and so on, and sometimes even more. But I had no willpower. I couldn't stick to it. And what they didn't realize was that diet wasn't suited for them, because it created too much of a stress for that individual with everything else they had going on. Because you think about it, with the Atkins, it was just high protein. There's sort of higher fats in there, but we know that keto is different now. Keto is more like medium protein, higher fats. But with that being said, back then, the strain of going completely no carbs and, with everyday life and all the other bits and pieces they were doing, the person would make it to the 2 to 3 week mark and they're like, I can't do this anymore. And they blamed themselves. Now, I'm not bashing the Atkins diet. We know it's morphed into something more fantastic since. But with that being said, you've got to look at, well, if you're not in a good place, if you're working full time, you've got other responsibilities and you've got to put food on the table for family members, etc., who are eating other things than you, it might be quite tricky to do the Atkins diet. So it's about looking at the diet might work for some people, it might not work for you. So it's about making sure you find what works best for you. And then when you find that one, you stick to it. Right? And in order to know if it works for you, you've got to try these things for at least 4 to 6 weeks. And you don't just measure your results, which obviously is important. You measure how easily you felt you got there. Now, the clients that I work with all say it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, right? And that's the way it should be, because I preach a lot of the time about habits, right? Now, the first week or two of any new plan will feel hard in the sense it's a lot to think about. But as you build the habits into your daily routine, you do things without thinking, and therefore it doesn't take up any bandwidth. You just do it, and it just becomes something that you do, and the results flow. But other routines, when you're too busy thinking about it all the time, you get stressed out. There's only so much you can think about it. Life gets in the way, and you throw your diet and exercise regime to one side because you just can't face it. So the key thing is the right diet for you is one that you can sustain long enough to get the results you're looking for and beyond to keep them off. So making sure you've got a good diet that suits you. You need a leash on those carbs regardless. They need to be monitored. We need good protein in there to feed the muscles. We need resistance training. We need movement, various forms. Never underestimate movement. And you need your stress managed as well. That is so important. There's lots of different techniques out there, but if you have that blueprint, that umbrella blueprint for when you're approaching something. So if you look at any one plan and it's missing any one of those elements, I would probably walk away from it. Or use their plan and add in extra bits of your own because you know your body best and adapt. But make sure it's got something addressing each of them and the results will flow. Now, I said at the start, my online membership is open. So I call it my CTS membership, which stands for Core Training System. It's called that because it started off with one live class using the exercise ball. We've built that now up to 4 different classes. So on Mondays, we do Kettle Blast, which is using a kettlebell, or if you've got a weight at home, and we work the muscles, over a 30-minute period. It's a nice little blast. People of all fitness levels and ages join in on that one. Tuesday, we have the kettle move class. You can do that with or without a kettlebell. It's designed for movement. Much as I was saying earlier, you need to move in order to lose weight. That's the class for you. Wednesdays, we do my core floor class, which is a Pilates-based routine to challenge the core, mobility, and flexibility. And of course, on Saturdays, we've got the ball class, which is an all-over body workout utilizing the ball. Now, all the classes you can either attend live on Zoom or YouTube, or the YouTube also acts for a recording, because I'm recording this live on YouTube at the moment, and it acts as a recording so you can then follow the link later and repeat the workouts. Where that's important is the move classes, because for my weight loss clients, I usually encourage them to revisit those move classes so they can just push play, do all the movement as I instruct them and take them through it, and 30 minutes later, the ball of sweat, they're like, oh great, job done for the day, movement achieved. So, the membership's got live classes. It's also got its coaching programs too. We're currently working on a program called Dial Into December. So if you did join now, you can enjoy that. And then in January, we've got Launchpad. So if you're looking to lose weight in the new year, Launchpad is your program. And every week I do a coaching live into a private group, going over the lessons of Launchpad, answering any questions, and I'm there every step of the way. So effectively, if you've got the flexibility, I'd see you 5 times a week. I'd see you for the coaching, and then I'd see you for 4 live classes or as many as you can make. There's a forum there for Q&A. You've got access to myself and any questions or any queries. You do not need to be fit to join. Everybody comes in with lots of different fitness levels. The key thing is good communication, because sometimes people are traveling, so they don't have kit. So they just say, right, I can have some variations in the class today because I don't have my ball or don't have my weight. Easy peasy. I've taught classes for so long now, it's not a problem whatsoever for me to give you an alternative. Sometimes people come and say, oh, my calf's a bit tight, I hiked a big mountain the other day, can I have alternatives for the legs? Great, can do that. So, or sometimes people have shoulder issues, whatever it may be. The key thing is that you show up and just be honest about what you can and can't do, and then you have a good workout, and then we go from there. So if you are interested, go over to my website, coachrab.com. You can get yourself signed up. There's a joining fee, then it's a weekly subscription, and get on board. Live classes, coaching programs, you get access to everything in my app, and you've got me on hand to help you with your results too. So if you are thinking about it, coachrab.com. All right, everybody, I hope you found this useful. For all those people that are in the US today, happy Thanksgiving to you. Hope you're having a fantastic time. And if you are thinking about, right, okay, I want to make sure I've got some healthy habits in place. It's advisable to start before the new year. You don't have to go crazy now, but I would advise start something small, and you build yourself up. That way, when the new year comes, you've got a bit of momentum, and then you can say, right, I'm going to step up a gear in the new year. But up from that point, I just want to make sure I'm laying down the foundation of habits until then. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.